Hello everyone, I'm ExcelsiorVFX, and today I'm doing a Stuff I Was Never Taught video, and I'm in the Steal the Bacon map, which, if it isn't out yet, hopefully it'll be out soon, because it's a mini game that I made, I want to say. And one of the features of this game is player identification. Now, I'll explain that a little bit more in depth later, but basically player identification is the ability to pick out a player in a command block without typing out their name. And I use it in this map because I want an infinite amount of players to be able to play. And I'll see you guys in my test world to show you guys exactly how to do this and why it's necessary. Okay, let's get started. So, you should probably have the blocks I have in my inventory. They're just miscellaneous redstone related ideas. But first, I'm going to add a scoreboard objective, that's going to be called num. Now this is going to be a dummy, and I'm just going to call it, I'll call it ID. This is how the players are going to be identified. So I'll go ahead and apply that, and one already exists, woohoo. But that wouldn't happen in your world. I just obviously have already created one in this world. But you want to start with the one item I do not have in my inventory, a hopper, and I'm going to make a 2x2 hopper clock. And in case you don't know much about redstone, one way to hook a hopper up to another is to just hold shift, then place it. But then I'll just throw some of this in, and this should go on every once in a while. And the reason why this is so slow is because hopefully it won't need to be fast, and also if it's too fast it just gets frustrating, let's just say. So there's going to be a command block right here with a redstone repeater, then a block here, a redstone repeater, then some redstone dust, a comparator output from here, and then if you build some blocks up, one more, then put your sticky piston on this block facing downward. I did that wrong. Face your sticky piston on this block facing downward, put a block there. You can destroy these blocks, build up over here, build this up, put a repeater here, a redstone torch there. I would advise you put it there first, then another torch right there, and you'll see this creates a nice pulsing pattern. I'm sure that there's a more efficient way to do it than this, but this is just the best way I know. And if you're annoyed with the piston, just put a redstone torch there, and that'll stop the piston from cycling. Let's go on. Okay, so we're also going to put another comparator out here, a block, and then a torch. Now this will be the current for whatever you want to happen whenever all the players are identified. So you could have it like, I'm just going to quickly put a command block here, say all players identified. I hope I spelled that right. So whenever that goes off, it'll say all players identified, but I did that wrong. Okay, now on here, but before we go on, we want to put just one command block here with a button on it, and we are going to type in it /scoreboard players set at a num 0. And before, whenever a player, this just makes sure that all players that are on the server currently, on the server currently, get reset. So this is like a reset button. In fact, I'm not. One thing quickly though, you don't have to do this, but I'm going to set the sidebar to num, which says ID, and I have an ID of 0, of course. And by the end of it, I should have, if there were more players, I might have an ID of 2 or an ID of 3, but as of right now, I just have an ID of 0 because that is the non-existent ID. Let's move on. Okay, next we're going to do something a little complicated that's again in the snapshot, or in the 1.8 snapshots, that's creating a player that doesn't exist. So we're going to type in scoreboard players set next num 1. Oh, just 1. And this next right here is actually going to be a fake player. So make sure you don't have any players on your server that have the name of next, because that would be a problem. But this is pretty much just a variable that if you've ever done any programming, you know what variables are. This is a variable. So whenever I hit this, you'll see next is also on the ID. And what's really good is that next is identified as a player on the scoreboard. At least this is as of what now. But if you do like at P, it doesn't actually find next to be like a physical player, which I think is very purposeful and very handy too. So this is again the reset button. Now here we are going to put test4 at player, or at the closest player that has a score number min of 0 and a score just 0. So in other words, it's a player that does not have an identification yet. So then we are going to just hit enter, and that's going to be that command block there. Let's move on. Okay, so after this piston, we're going to put a repeater, then 2 command blocks on top of each other. In the first one, we're going to do a little bit of a complicated command. So again, all the commands are in the description, below. But if it's much easier and you learn a lot more if you just copy down what I'm doing. Okay, scoreboard operation. Excuse me, I made a little mistake. It's actually scoreboard players, and I misspelled players. Scoreboard players operation at R, which you don't actually have to do at R. You could do at P, but this just helps to make sure that not all the same players are of the same identification all the time. And also, this might be the only time you ever use the at R selector, because this is the only time I've ever used it. Then score. This is the very same thing we did before. Score num min equals 0. Score num equals 0. Then this is where it gets a little complicated. Num, that's the scoreboard objective, plus equals, I'm sorry for the little spaz of the screen, next num. Now I know that's a little bit confusing, but let me go through it. So pretty much, it takes the score of next, which is 1 right here on the side of the screen, and it applies it to this player, which, since I'm in single player, it has to apply it to me. But if I were in multiplayer, it would choose between whichever players have a score of 0. Next, in here, we're going to put scoreboard players add next num 1. And that's a very simple command. It just adds 1 to next. So, if I turn this to that, it'll say all players identified. There we go, because if you see in the ID, I have an identification of 1. So if you were looking for a specific player, you would just have the identification of 1. And that's, I know that sounded more confusing than it is, but don't worry. If you're an experienced map maker, you'll definitely understand what that means. But I'll show you some examples. So let's say you have a cool feature on your server that says somebody throws a potion and they teleport somewhere. That's an idea gotten off of Dragnaw's actually from for some of his older videos. But you just tested it in your single player world and you realized if you just have here clear at P speed, and then excuse me, I messed that way up. If you had effect at P clear, and then you had in the command block here TP at P 0, 100, 0, just say, or I'm just going to actually say say or tell at P teleport. That's great in single player because then I can just set up a quick, oh that won't work, a quick hopper clock here. And then it'll do that. So if I grab a potion of regeneration, how about that? It'll say teleport. The only thing is, if you have a multiplayer server, that's a really big problem because then it doesn't work right. So you just have to do score num min equals 1, equals 1, score num equals 1, clear, and then I'm just going to copy this and then tell that to this player. Only downside to that, then for each player that you have on your server, you have to continually put that. So that's not the best, but it's better than having a problem with other stuff. But it's better than having to do all the manual. And also, what you could do is you could do this command: scoreboard players add at a num -1. Oh. You could do scoreboard players, or you could do scoreboard players set 1 num 1, and that creates another variable. And you could do scoreboard players operation at a num minus equals 1 num, and that subtracts 1 from all the players. So if you just saw, my ExcelsiorVFX just got set to 0. So I'm going to quickly reset this and then show you that again. All players identified. And then if I subtract it, it'll set me to 0 again. Except if you have a multiplayer server, it would set the 0 player to 1. And that's exactly how I do it on the Steal the Bacon map, so you can easily have rounds of players, and you don't have to worry about doing all these comparators or all these clocks like this. Oops. And that's pretty much the concept for you guys. I hope this wasn't too confusing, because this is a little bit complicated and it probably could be a little more efficient. But again, this is another proof of concept kind of video, or a map making tips video, and I hope you guys learned something in this video. And just I want you guys to check out some of my other videos too, and I'll see you guys later whenever I come up with something else.